All right, guys, let us welcome our next guest on the podcast. She is a current UFC fighter, former UFC title challenger, and one of our favorite fighters, Raquel Pennington.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks
What's
for
up,
coming
guys?
on the show. We really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. Raquel, it's funny. We actually met you a couple of years ago in Melbourne at 243 at a meet and greet before we started the podcast. So
I was actually going to say, you guys look really familiar.
so
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that you're our first UFC guest on the show. But yeah, it's good to have you here.
Yeah. It's crazy how fast time has gone since then, huh?
I know, right? But yeah, like we were talking about earlier, though, we're more into the storytelling side of things. So I guess we'll start with where you grew up. Give us a bit of backstory and how this crazy journey began for you.
So I actually grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I don't even know, honestly. I grew up being a huge athlete, so I've been doing sports ever since I was 5. I've done everything under the sun. I played volleyball, basketball, softball, baseball, football.
Wow.
Ran cross country, did track, gymnastics, swimming, like soccer, everything goes on. Grew up being a huge tomboy. I have another female cousin, but her and I didn't grow up together. And so I grew up with all my guy cousins and then a younger brother. Grew up just super outdoorsy and adventurous. I come from a huge Hispanic family. I'm super family oriented. My grandpa taught me to like hunt and fish ever since I was little. And then just my mom put this adventurous bone in me. I love doing pretty much everything that you can think of. So, I mean, living in Colorado, we have everything outdoors. And so hiking, camping, rock climbing, ice climbing, snowmobiling, snowboarding, snowshoeing, whitewater rafting, rock rappelling, like
Fuck yeah.
whatever, bring it my way. And so, that was that. And I actually wanted to be my goal in life was to be a WNBA player, huge baller. And then, I broke my back my senior year snowboarding.
No way.
So I couldn't take any of my athletic scholarships. So I took an academic scholarship to the university here in Colorado Springs. And I was just going through rehab and kind of training, trying to get back to myself pretty much. And then there was one point, my best friend growing up, her dad was a professional boxer and her 2 brothers were professional boxers. So I was around boxing for a little bit and I told my parents I wanted to box and they were like, you're way too pretty and your teeth are way too nice. No. So I just grew up fighting my guy cousin who we're 5 months apart and they call us Chip and Dale. We were those annoying kids that would like fight each other all the time. My grandparents, we spent most of our time there and they had, my grandma likes, like cactuses of all kinds. So anywhere we'd go, they're always digging up cactuses. We would throw each other in her cactus garden. Like we were just terrorists with each other all the time. So that was pretty much my experience of fighting. Like I didn't grow up getting into street fights, acting all crazy, doing anything. I was very involved in, like I said, athletics and then National Honor Society and my academics and stuff. I got recruited at the age of 13 on a 17, 18-year-old traveling basketball team that traveled around the world. And we were training at the Olympic Training Center. So that's where my focus came from. And then, like I said, I mean, I broke my back and it was more so of a joke. My mom and I were at the gym. We were working out one night and the first team I started with, they were training in like a yoga studio in the back corner on those 1/2-inch puzzle mats. And they were throwing each other all over the place. They were doing judo, all this crazy stuff. And I told my mom, I said, hey, I'm going to go do that. And she was like, go for it. I was like, oh, okay. So we went in, we talked to the coach and he was like, yeah, here's our times. This is what we do. Here's the sport. And it was like, all right, I never really heard of MMA at this point. The summer right before that happened, I was actually visiting my dad in Florida. He's like, hey, watch these fights real quick. And the very first fight I seen was Tanya Evinger versus Gina Carano. And I was what is this sport? And so that was my first experience actually seeing MMA. And then, so then I went in the next day and it was actually my very first training session was a spar session. Had no idea how to wrap my hands. The coach gives me some wraps and he's like, here you go. So I'm just like making this bulky padding on my hand, just trying to make sense of it. And I shove it in a glove. I start going with all these guys. Back then, I mean, I've been doing the sport for 14 years now. And back then there was no female training partners like anywhere. And so, anyways, I started training, and then the coach was like, "Hey, you're a natural." And so I came home and I was like, I'm fighting in 4 months. And so I fought my first fight 4 months later. And then here I am 14 years later.
No way.
That's awesome. How old were you at that time, roughly?
I was only 19.
Wow, that's awesome.
And only after 4 months of training, your first bout.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I felt like I was ready. I was in there beating up all the guys, and it was cool because the team that I started with, like, they didn't treat me like I was a female. Like, they treated me with respect, and they treated me as an athlete. So they only made me better. Like I said, I mean, growing up with my guy cousin and always fighting each other, I mean, it was like, all right, it was one of those. But then it was definitely different. I remember I never cut weight before, never experienced any of that. So going through all that, it was a new challenge. I love challenges, obviously. So back then weight cutting was kind of fun. Now it's absolutely ridiculous. But so then learning like that whole aspect, and we drove to Casper, Wyoming. That was where my first fight was at. And you want to talk about the emotions that come with the sport? I felt like I was crazy, and I was like, I don't know about this. And then my amateur career was pretty good. I mean, my first fight lasted 1:43 in the first round.
Wow.
And then after that, I became addicted. So
that's what I was going to ask you. Was it straight after your first amateur fight, you were hooked on it? You knew that's what you wanted to pursue as a career?
Yeah, it was one of those things too. Like I said, I mean, most people, there was no women involved and stuff. So everybody was like, oh, you can't go anywhere with it. And I was like, I said it from the get-go. I was like, I'm going to be one of the first women in the UFC. And they were like, I can't tell you how many people laughed at that. And I was like, it's going to happen. Like, I don't know how, but it's going to happen. And so it was just, the beginning of my career was really motivating for me, just because everybody like really doubted it. And because everybody was just like, you're crazy. Like, this ain't going to be anything. And then on top of that, like, it wasn't big for women. And just, there was just basically everybody seen it as kind of a dead end. And then my family was really frustrated every time I was coming home with massive bruises on my legs and all the conditioning and black eyes and stuff. And it was everybody. I mean, my grandparents were getting onto me. My mom was getting onto me. And then it was just, for me, it was more motivating. I was like, yep, this is happening. The more you guys keep doubting me, the more I'm going to keep pushing towards it. And then, opportunities just started opening up. So I went 9-1 as an amateur and fought for 6 titles. And then I made my pro debut against Kim Couture, Randy Couture's ex-wife.
Yeah, we read that.
I TKO'd her in the second round. And then I was the first female to ever fight for a professional title in Hawaii. So I became the Hawaiian Islands champion. And then that's when Invicta became a thing. So my family and I drove out to Kansas, and I went and introduced myself to the promoter. And then we watched the event, and I gave her all my info. And then she called me, and I ended up signing a multi-fight contract with them. And then UFC ended up announcing that they were going to allow women. And it was my weight class. And at that time, I was actually like really burnt out. I fought a few professional boxing matches, and then I was just like, I'm done. Like, I was getting frustrated. Like, I'm all about like the passion and having fun and things. And when I went pro, I learned how dirty the business can get. I got burned by some managers. Like, people were it took the passion out of it, and it took the fun out of it. And so then I had a really rocky career, and just like, I wasn't going into fights for the right reason. And then I was getting frustrated because I was losing to decisions in fights that I should have never lost and stuff. And so then I was like, I'm done. I'm stepping away for a while. And my family was calling me, and my cousin was calling me, and they kept pushing me. And then one of my really good friends growing up, she was like, this is happening. You're going to go out there. So we actually got into the car at like 11:30 at night. We drove 12 hours to Las Vegas. I took a 30-minute nap, and I went through 13 hours of tryouts for the Ultimate Fighter. And there was a ton of women there, because I mean, that was the first opportunity. So there was a ton of women there trying to get there. And obviously only 8 of us made it in there. And then I did my whole thing throughout the Ultimate Fighter. And then now here I've been signed with the UFC since 2013.
How hard was that period there when you're trying to get into the UFC financially as well? Because we know it's not, you're not getting paid as much as what you are in the UFC. So I'm curious how hard that period was. Did you have to work at the same time or?
So yeah, I was going to school. I was doing my pre-med and everything at that time. And then I was actually working at Sam's Club. I was driving like the forklift and stocking the freezers and coolers and just kind of hanging out. And that was the one job that I had. And then I remember coming home one day and I told my mom, I was like, I think I actually want to give this like a shot. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I think I'm going to try to like turn this into something. And so I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go full force and focus on training. And my mom has always been like my best friend, my number one supporter. She's actually my weight cut buddy now. And so she just, she told me, she was like, you know what, that's what you want, go for it. But like, how are you going to pay for certain bills? And I was like, well, before I do it, I'm going to pay off like certain things that I have. And I was like, and then, I mean, if I have to sell my car, I'll sell my car and I'll just like run to places or ride my bike or something and have some extra cash. And then my mom was like, all right, go for it. And then when I told my dad that, my dad, on the other hand, was like not having it. He like, it got to our relationship pretty bad. And he pretty much told me that I was going to flip burgers at McDonald's for the rest of my life, in which I don't understand like where there's a problem with that. Anyways, like, you know what I mean? Like it provides a living for many people, but he just kind of like cut me into the ground with it and stuff. So that right there, like really lit a fire. And then, I balanced my money. Like I just kind of I was just buying what I needed and like going through and doing things and kind of making opportunities happen. And with the fights and the opportunities that I got and sponsorships that were coming my way, like I definitely am grateful and blessed. It helped pave the way. And then, with the Ultimate Fighter, I mean, obviously we got paid to be on the show, and then being locked in the house, I wasn't spending any money. Yeah. And then when I went back to fight for the finales, when I got like my first initial big paycheck, and then right after that, just within like a month, UFC called me back to fight, to actually sign with them and fight with them on a multi-fight contract. So, I mean, it all definitely worked out. And like I said, I mean, I'm super grateful and super blessed.
Awesome. That's awesome. By any means necessary, it sounds like you were going to make it no matter what.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was making it happen. All those haters, man. I was like, this is happening.
That's awesome.
So how big was that opportunity from the Ultimate Fighter? That must have been a massive moment for you, getting that call when there was so many girls that wanted the position.
Yeah, it was a really unique moment. It was one of those where it was just like, all right, like here's a door that can pretty much change my life and like give me the opportunity to truly like focus on my craft. And like I said, I mean, I always thought it would be WNBA. I never thought it would be a fighter, but being a professional athlete, like, and having the platform that I have to like inspire other people or like reach out to people. And I remember being that young athlete to where I went and seen some of like my favorite basketball stars at their games and whatnot, and I just like wanted an autograph or a picture, and they couldn't even take that time. And I always said that I would be that person that would take the time and like interact with all the kids and do the things, and eventually like start a nonprofit organization. I came from like a school that they could consider like one of the worst schools in Colorado Springs. It's a ghetto school, blah blah blah, and most people like don't make it out. And like I want to make a difference. And so it was like, I have bigger goals than just fighting and stuff or being that professional athlete. I want to like be able to give back to the community and whatnot. So that alone was just like motivating. And when that opportunity opened, and like I said, I mean, there was so many women there trying out that day. So to dwindle down from 300 and become one of the top 8 and have that opportunity, I mean, you guys can only imagine how that feels,
Yeah.
What was your experience? What was your experience like in the house? Did you enjoy it, or was it a bit too like being stuck in there for so long away from your family and stuff? How was it?
So I enjoyed it. It definitely takes you out of your comfort zone. It really, I feel like that was the opportunity that really made me like spread my wings and really grow as an individual and as an athlete. Like I said, I mean, it takes you out of that comfort zone. So you don't have anything. You don't have your family. You don't have your friends. You don't have your coaches. You don't have your normal routine. You're in there with athletes of all different calibers and people with the same mind frame, but then also with their own personalities. Yeah. And You have to learn a new level of discipline and just be ready. I mean, you're in there for 7 weeks, you're constantly training, you're filming. If they tell you, you go to the gym and you're watching one fight and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, Pennington versus whoever, like you have to make weight the next day. Yeah. So it's not like you have the opportunity now where you have weeks to cut weight and be ready. And then, I mean, like I said, I didn't know anybody going into that house. And so you're building relationships, or you're finding different personality types that don't match with yours. And so it was definitely it was challenging. It was unique, but I'm actually really grateful for that opportunity.
For sure. What do you think of it making its comeback with the coaches, Volkanovski and Ortega? How do you think? Are you excited to see it back?
I'm super excited. I was bummed when they actually took it away. I feel like if anybody has that opportunity, like they should definitely jump on it and go experience it. So when they initially got rid of it, it was just like, oh man, why are you guys doing that? Because not only like, even from a fan perspective, it gives you the opportunity to learn athletes. Like obviously TV, they can portray you however they want. And sometimes they focus on things more than what they should, but it allows people to connect with individuals for who we are besides just being a fighter. Like you get to learn us more as people and what comes around in our stories. And so I think that's super unique, as opposed to where they have like Dana White's Contender Series and stuff. Like, people get to see us as that fighter and like a small part of our story. But the Ultimate Fighter is just, you get to see behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love it.
And the coaches, I mean, that's going to be a hell of a fight with those coaches too. So.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, we can't wait. That's our boy too, Volko. Is it literally lives 15 minutes away from us? So
yeah, nice.
Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome to see. Well, obviously you had an awesome run in the UFC once you came in through the tough show, and then you all worked your way all the way to a title shot. But then in 2017, you had that ATV accident. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, like you guys said, great run, was on a winning streak, and then fought Misha. We made history that night with the whole Madison Square Garden stuff and whatnot. And, you know, I mean, I've had a really fulfilling career thus far. And then I actually went into that fight with a full-blown torn right shoulder, which is why I was jabbing the crap out of her. And so I went into total reconstructive shoulder surgery. I had a bicep tendinosis done. And then I had to have wrist surgery and get a tendon repaired in there as well. So, I mean, I had an 18-month layoff. That was pretty tough. It was frustrating. It was like, oh, you know, I'm going to be in a sling here, but I'm still going to go to the gym and jab and do all this stuff. And the doctor was like, no, you're going to be a couch potato. So that actually was really hard. And then I developed a thyroid issue during that time too. And the doctors were like really worried about thyroid cancer and all this craziness. So it was just like, I started hitting like all these bumps during that time. And it took an emotional toll as well as a physical toll. And then trying to come back from it, like, was just extremely tough. I mean, the 18-month layoff, all the issues going on, and then UFC calls and they're like, all right, like you're coming back to such a high profile fight that it was kind of a lot. You know, I wanted the opportunity to come back and kind of get the rust off and feel like myself and get back in there and understand what my body was doing. And so then that took a little bit of a toll. And but then how do you turn down a world title shot? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what we're going to say. We were curious how it is coming back to obviously Amanda in a prime and a pay-per-view headline. It seems like a lot of pressure after that time off.
It was a lot for sure. And so I was just like, all right, you know what, we can make this happen. We were originally scheduled for December, and then October 23rd, I broke my leg. And the same thing with that. I mean, some people just hear like the ATV accident and they're like, oh, broken leg, whatever. But like, I actually barely avoided amputation. I've had a lot of nerve damage. That accident was a rough one to try to come back from. And then, you know, even that, like, all right, here's another setback. And that just took another emotional beating on me. And it was just like, I just wanted to get back. And then you have UFC calling and they're like, hey, how about the fight in February? Hey, how about the beginning of March? And so after so many calls and constantly talking, it's just like, your body needs time. Like there's no way to come back from nerve damage and from the broken bone and everything that quick.
And mentally too. Mentally, you need time.
Oh, for sure. And I think that was the hardest part. That was the biggest learning lesson for me. So yeah, I mean, I came back and we all seen how the fight went. Amanda kicked exactly where the damage was at in the first round and I fell. And you know, I've been in fights with broken bones. I've had a broken hand and I've still put it in chicks' face. I've had fractured forearms, I've had cuts, and they don't faze me. Yeah. But that pain was just one of a kind in that fight. And I went into complete defense mode. I've never experienced something like that. So it was really tough being in my biggest fight ever. And then a 25-minute fight and taking that kick in the first round. And it took everything I had to stand back up. And I felt like I was in there with a broken leg again. And then just, I mean, it was rough. And so it's that fight was a hard one to swallow, to say the least.
For sure. You've been into massive fights since then as well, with your most recent win over Marion Reneau in June. But obviously at the moment you're unable to fight due to USADA suspension, which you've been pretty open about. But did you want to elaborate on that a bit more for the people, our audience, that are unaware of the situation and when you're able to come back, and people that are curious to see your next steps?
Yeah. So, I mean, to continue to add to this stuff, I mean, the Amanda fight and then drinking, like that's when the whole thyroid issue hit really bad and I missed weight. And then there was that beating and it was just like, I am over this. Like I hit another spot where it was just like, I'm done with this career. And then COVID hit. And so, I mean, obviously strange times for the entire world, but I think I actually needed that time off. And then during that time, ESPN aired my fight with Amanda. And I forced myself to actually watch it. Like I couldn't watch that fight for the longest time because the way that I actually felt in there, but then actually watching the fight and seeing how it went, like, man, I couldn't be more proud of myself for exactly how I felt internally. And then it was like, okay, cool. Well, then obviously COVID hitting and having to take all this time off and the gym's closing, like it just kind of set it, almost like mentally and emotionally reset me. It was like I actually needed it. Yeah. And so then coming back into the Marion Reneau fight, I felt like almost like myself again, like not 100% there yet, but I was actually having fun. Like the camp was great. Like just my body like was actually like kind of working with me. The thyroid issue was under control. So it started feeling fun again. And then, this shit with USADA, it goes back to the whole thyroid thing. And I mean, the history of it, like everybody, we've had all the doctors and whatnot. And so my thyroid just started acting up again. I started to like lose my hair again on both sides. And like my widow's peak was falling off. And it was just like my weight was changing again. And that's really hard. It's really hard from like busting your ass, working so hard, dieting so hard, and like having all these disciplines. And yet my body's just like gaining weight and doing completely opposite. And then of course, like being on the platform that we're at, like I've never cared what people think or anything. But then when you've been taking so many emotional beatings yourself that we're accessible to the world by social media and people are talking shit and they're like, oh, Raquel looks like she's sitting around eating all these Twinkies and this, that, or another. Like, it's been one thing after another. And so I went and seen a hormone specialist and basically like pretty much my testosterone levels don't exist. Like I don't produce any testosterone and I have way too much estrogen. So they were worried about like cancer as far as the estrogen. So they were like, we need to get that under control. Basically, they wanted to put me on a microdose of testosterone just to get my body to understand that it should produce testosterone and hopefully it would start like doing it on its own. And so like you have all these athletes who they have obviously done stupid shit and run things for people. And then you have other athletes like myself who's just trying to get healthy and being able to function. Exactly. But pretty much what it came down to is the doctor put me on like all these micro doses to see if we can get my body to recognize what it should naturally do. And I was taking it and I called and told them basically in concern, like, hey, can I get a TUE, which should be the exemption stuff, because I'm trying to get my hormones under control and get all this figured out and get balanced. And basically like that was rejected. And then it turned into the whole thing that I'm taking a banned substance. And then of course the world, like they start hearing bad substance. So it turns into like, oh, you're a doper. And basically like the substance that I was on was, one of them was 7-keto DHEA, which for anybody else would pretty much be like a fat burner. So, I'm going to sweat more. Like, come on. But the other effects of it is it actually increases the activity of the thyroid. And so, pretty much, I mean, went under investigation. USADA obviously knows like my whole history with it. They talked to the doctors. They got fresh blood work. They came out and drug tested me. and like a microdose showed up in my system. Then they came out a week later and retested me, and obviously I quit taking everything, and nothing has been in my system. They tested me for once a week for almost 6 weeks, and everything was cleared. And then the whole investigation got done, and pretty much, I guess, like when people are actually doing stupid shit, this is like a suspension for up to 2 years. But because given my situation, and how I came forward and talked to them, and then because they talked to all the doctors, and because they knew the whole past history, they gave me the retroactive suspension of 6 months. And so now my suspension will be up May 17th. And so that's annoying too, because it's just like pretty much by the time I get back into the octagon, there's another year down.
Wow, that's crazy.
And how are you now? How's the health now? The thyroid and everything now?
So I started working with Lou Nutrition. And he's been really focused on certain things that like work with my system, gotten blood work done, all kinds of different things. And we've just been really focusing on it in every natural way possible. And then just with certain like supplements to kind of boost what our bodies already naturally produce, but just to give it like a higher dose and see if we can get my body to like function that way. So basically I'm off of anything, and we're just trying to do it all naturally and kind of figure it out. My hair like still like is really thin, and I still lose like a lot of hair. But as far as like the effects of the thyroid, like I don't feel as fatigued. And I feel like the diet is like working pretty good. So I think that as far as that, like we'll be able to get the weight off pretty decent, without like the struggle in a weight cut anymore. Cause I mean, ever since this thyroid issue, I've had some brutal weight cuts. Everybody's like, oh, you're super small for a 135er. But in reality, like I'm not small. I walk 155, 160 consistently. And, you know, I used to always joke about like my genetics and having the Mexi roll as my reserved energy. And everybody's like, oh, you could fight at 125, but like, I'm honestly way too dense. So like I have a 22 pound weight cut every fight. And people like don't realize that. So now we're trying to slowly like get my body to like taper, but keep like the thyroid balance. And so it's a lot of work.
It sounds like it.
Like you mentioned before, though, your last fight was almost a year ago, which must be frustrating. But we know Tisha has fought in between then and now. But I'm just curious, what have you been up to? You just been training, trying new things, new techniques.
My bad. So, I mean, I just kind of went back to the basics and started having fun. Like I said, I mean, just been really focused on the whole nutrition aspect of this and kind of getting things balanced. And then as far as training, like I've really mixed it up. So I've been doing a different style of strength and conditioning and building my body completely different. And then as far as like actual training, I mean, sharpening tools and then going back to basic stuff and like just having fun with that, and then learning new stuff, and pretty much just, you know, pretty much just training and enjoying my craft without having that pressure of anything. And just it pretty much taught me a different level of patience. So I've learned patience and just kind of having fun.
That's awesome. Do you have any matchups in mind when you do return in May? Do you have anyone that you're looking for, or you're just looking to just jump back in there with whoever they give you?
So during this time off, Aspen Ladd and Pani or Pani Kiazad or
Kianzad,
Yep. They've been talking a lot of shit. And so I was just like, obviously I want to climb the ranks, and Aspen's ranked above me. Right now they pulled me out of the rankings with the whole suspension, but when they put me back in, like I was pulled out from being fourth. And so Aspen's third. I did ask for her, but they said she wouldn't be ready until August. So then I told them just to give me a fight to return back. So me and Pani or whatever, we're supposed to fight June 12th. And then we were talking about having Aspen after that, but I seen that Aspen got signed at the end of July. So we'll see how it plays out. But currently, like, that's the goal for June 12th.
Love to see them fight.
So that's ideal for you coming back to June 12th. So are you in fight shape? So have you planned your camp sort of for June 12th, or have you just been staying ready, I guess, the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's kind of one of those things to where I've been just training and having fun and getting in shape. And without the pressure of an actual fight camp. So then all of a sudden, now that we're like revving it up, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, I'm there, but like I'm already in like phenomenal shape and doing all the things, and just kind of waiting for that time just to be able to get back out there.
Awesome.
How long do you give yourself for a camp when you do have a set date? 8 weeks, 10 weeks?
So most athletes like 8 weeks. Like you could talk to most fighters and they like 8 weeks. I personally do not like 8 weeks. I start to go a little crazy, and then things just get emotional because I'm like getting exhausted from the intensity. So I actually prefer shorter camps. My last fight when I fought Marion was on a 4-week camp, and it was the best camp. I felt great. I had fun. Like it was just like that fire was lit. The excitement was there. And then by the time I was getting anywhere near tired, I was peaking and there was the fight. And so I actually like the shorter fights. Like my second fight against Jessica Andrade was on a 3-week fight camp. And that was rough because obviously the weight cut, like when the shorter camps are there, it's mostly focusing on weight. So yeah, I prefer anywhere from like 6 weeks down.
Do you think it's like mentally taxing them big, long 8 to 12 week camps just too focused on the fight? And by the time you get there, you're just drained.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're constantly just living that same thing for 8 weeks. It's the intensity's there. Like you're dieting the whole time. Like it's just, it does get draining. And so the less time that for me that I have to focus on it, the more fun that I actually have. So right now it's just like, okay, like we've known about the fight now for a little bit, but basically it's just another day in the gym. I'm just working out. I'm just getting in shape. I'm just having fun doing the things. Cool. And then I don't know, 5 weeks from now, we'll be like, all right, fight camp. And then, hey, let's get a little intense and rev it up.
That's awesome. What's life like at home when you and Tisha are both in a fight camp or cutting weight? Do you argue much, or is there tension for the food and stuff?
Fight over who cooks dinner.
Well, I mean, being with another fighter, I mean, it's kind of the same thing being in the Ultimate Fighter. I think it gave me the opportunity to experience that when you're around another athlete all the time, but things can always get a little intense.
Yeah, I had to do a little weight cut and these two eating chocolates and shit, and I was pissed off.
While we're on the topic of
everybody's so different, you know, like you have some athletes like myself that I really got to focus on. Like I focus in the gym and then I have to focus on my nutrition. And then you have other athletes who like, they can eat whatever the hell they want. They don't got to focus on nothing. And it's like, oh, it's so irritating.
Oh, it's annoying.
Yeah. Everyone. How did you and Tisha meet anyway? It's a little bit off topic, but.
We met at, Invicta Fighting Championships back in 2012.
Cool. Oh, no way.
Yeah. So the all-female promotion that paved the way for us and supported us.
Awesome. What's it like fighting on the same card as her? Is it extra nerves or?
No, actually. So the last fight that we fought on, last June, I mean, it was super exciting. It was kind of just like another day in the office. It was actually, I fought after her. So that's kind of the way we ran our camp. She was doing her spar sessions before me and I would watch it. And then all of a sudden I was up next. And that's pretty much what happened that night. So it was just a cool dynamic. I kept the separation, asked UFC for different rooms to give the space. And then the coaches, they kind of divided. I think our coaches were a little nervous, but they kind of divided things. And, you know, one was with her, one was with me, and focused on what we needed as individuals. And then during the weight cut, like complete separate process. And then, I mean, like I said, the fight, obviously I was after her. So it was actually kind of cool to like watch her on TV. It kind of like hyped me up and was like, you know, it's different when obviously I'm watching the fights and stuff. When I'm warming up in the back room, stretching and whatnot, they have TVs, but then just to kind of like still have that same little zone. I mean, it was pretty cool. I liked it.
So you mentioned obviously June 12th, but I'm curious, what does an ideal in your head, ideal 2021 look like for you? How many fights do you want to get in this year? What's a perfect year look like for you?
So I would love to fight June, and then I would love to get another fight in August, and then I would actually have 2 great performances in those, and then get another world title shot by the end of the year.
That's awesome. What about Tisha? Does she have anything lined up, or does she have any plans to return soon?
No, she's actually kind of struggling getting a fight. She wants to climb the rankings, and they want to give her like all these other opponents. And so she's I'm the type that like, I will go out and fight whoever. I don't care if you're first or you're 30th. Like, I love challenges. We're all here for a reason. Bring it on. Tisha's more the type of, she likes to kind of pick her fights and like really focus on that. And if she's not going to get it, then she's not going to take a fight. So she's just helping everybody else prepare. I mean, you got a bunch of girls in Colorado right now who coming out here, getting the high altitude training and stuff and whatnot. And it's giving everybody the opportunity to all sharpen our skills and work with each other. So
that's awesome.
We'll shoot a bit further down the track. I'm curious, where are you in 5 years' time? Are you still fighting, still competing? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years. So I'm 32 and I actually feel like I'm in my prime. So I'm pretty excited. And I feel like, back in the day, people were like, oh, once you're in your 30s, your mid 30s, like it's time to retire. But with the way that sports medicine and everything is and whatnot, I mean, I think a lot of us are hitting our primes. And then on top of that, recovery is a lot different. Like everything has evolved so much to where it's taken the longevity. So I definitely still want to fight for probably another 5 years. I mean, especially in this sport, like time goes so fast.
Yeah.
My last fight was a year ago and here I am, you know what I mean? So it's just like, and then by the time you're preparing for a fight, like there's 3 months of your life out of it. So yeah, I definitely still want to be fighting. I want a family. And so I just went through like the whole egg retrieval process. And so we'll see how that kind of plays out in all of this, but I want a family. I want to still fight. I want to open my own gym. Awesome. I coach high school gymnastics, but I want to coach MMA. I have my godson and our family friend who's very involved in karate. And so just like supporting them and watching them grow. And then, I just want to continue focusing on like the business aspect of my career and really building things from there and being able to like do some sort of like nonprofit to give back to the community and like help other kids and just different things. So I have a pretty big vision board. We'll see how it all plays out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I guess we'll move away from fighting to finish off. We're curious, what other hobbies do you have outside of fighting and competing? Maybe a book you're reading, a series you're watching. I know you have a few dogs, dog walking, that sort of things.
Yeah, I got a gang over here. Yeah, so I mean, when I'm not fighting, I love interacting with my dogs. I have a ton of them. So it's dog parks and nightly walks or hiking. Really, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I'm super family oriented. So I spend a ton of time with my family, come from a huge Hispanic background. So we get together 2 or 3 times a week as a family. And I mean, everybody gets together and watches all the UFC fights and has dinner and stuff like that. I hang out with my friends. I do love my me time, which includes like, whether that's just like recovery as far as massage or chilling out in the sauna, relaxing, going to the hot springs, going out and taking a hike or going up to somewhere in the mountains and kind of just reading a book. Or journaling. I'm big on journaling. Like I said, I coach high school gymnastics. So, I mean, that takes up my time interacting with the girls and doing that. And then, I like to, my grandpa, he's 84 years old and he's taught me to hunt and fish. So that's a bond that we have. And I'll take him up into the mountains and we'll just go get lost. And we either just wander around. My coach, the same thing. He's a hunter. So we'll go like shed hunting and just wandering. We'll do some fishing. And then of course, when hunting comes up, we're out in the woods and just kind of off the grid. So it really just depends, honestly, like what mood I'm in.
Do you still get some shots up with the basketball?
I do. So it's kind of funny because when I actually went into those surgeries, my biggest thing was like, I couldn't bring my arm back. I was a pitcher and I played shortstop in softball. And so then I went to the doctor and I was like, my arm's not working. And he's like, don't you punch people? Like, that's not the motion you need. And I was like, no, I love playing catch. Like me and my best friend will get together and we'll just go play catch for hours. Like it's relaxing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, I need that back. And then when I had that wrist surgery, I was like, I don't have my flick. And they were like, you don't need a flick. And I was like, no, I need a flick. So like my rehab definitely changed because they were like, all right, let's get this girl's flick back. And then that's another thing is like for when we get ready to start my weight cut, like all my coaches know that I'm a baller. And so we actually, as a team, we'll play basketball games. And the only rule there is don't roll your ankles, but we'll play as a team, and we'll start the warm up there and get like my core temp up. And then all of a sudden I'm doing like an Epsom salt bath and going into like the fight world. So yeah, that flick is important. I still shoot around all the time.
Yeah. Awesome. Who's your team? Who do you follow in the NBA or the WNBA?
So I'm more about college basketball.
Sick.
And then I'm NBA, not so much. But yeah, college basketball. Duke.
Cool.
Duke,
Nice.
Let's go. So we're gonna finish off with a few quick questions we always finish the podcast with. So the first one, I'll start. What's the favorite? We all know you've had some pretty big moments in your career. What's your favorite moment of your career, you'd say?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good one. I would probably say
probably too many to line up.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I've had a lot. Like, you know,
that's a good thing.
Ultimate Fighter, getting the call from the Ultimate Fighter was one cool one. Having fight of the season was a cool one. Making history at Madison Square Garden and fighting my coach, and then all of a sudden I was helping her prepare, so we were like teammates, and then now here we are, rivals. Like, I mean, that was a cool one. Not everybody gets the opportunity to fight for a world title, so getting the call to fight for a UFC world title, like, I don't know, how do you decide?
Yeah, that's
there's
awesome.
the moments like
that's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having too many highlights.
the moments like who's headlining. Do you play into that much, like being under a Conor McGregor card or Ronda Rousey card? Does that play a factor, or do you not really care?
You know, I mean, honestly, I focus on like more of my career and whatnot, and like to have those opportunities and fight on them are super exciting. So, I mean, to a certain degree, I like pay attention to it, but for the most part, it's not about the card for me. It's just about the opportunity.
That's awesome. Of course. Well, next question. What's one piece of advice you'd give to an up and coming fighter?
Anything that I always tell fighters is to always have fun, to continue to hold on to their passion, and to have fun. Because once those two are gone, like, it really just becomes like a job, and it doesn't become like, it's not what it was. So, you know, I mean, obviously there's a lot that comes behind it, but the number one thing is have fun.
Awesome.
Cool. A couple last fun ones. 3 people you would have at a dinner party, dead or alive.
3 people I'd have at a dinner party?
Yep.
Yeah.
I like my circle pretty small, so it would all pretty much be my family.
That's awesome. That's cool.
And last one, if you're on death row, what would your last meal be?
Steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
I love steak and potatoes. They would have to bring in like a Brazilian steakhouse.
Yeah.
Give me all the meats.
Before we go, we wanted to get your thoughts on the fights this today, actually.
Or tonight for you.
Yeah.
261.
Who do you have?
What do you make up in the 3 title matches?
I'm actually pretty excited because we got 13 minutes before this card starts. I've been waiting all day, watching this clock. So for the main event, I mean, I'm a fan of both of the guys, but I definitely got Usman. And then obviously Rose is my girl. She's a friend. She's our teammate and stuff. And so, and then Colorado, proud. But with that being said, I am a fan of Zhang, and she is a whole new breed. And so I'm overall very excited for that fight, but Rose. And then Valentina and Jessica, that is such an interesting matchup to me, honestly,
I think
because
so too.
Valentina is she's just so she's very good at what she does in every aspect of the game, but she's very much so that fighter who's a counter fighter, and she takes pictures of her opponent and just watches what they do and then reacts to it and then dominates off of that. And then you have her matched up against Jessica Andrade, who I fought twice. And for that girl being the size she is, man, she is tough. And she's probably one of the hardest hitting females I've ever been against. And so to see that level of aggression come out there, and I don't feel like Valentina's actually faced that level of aggression, it can play out for a very interesting matchup. But I mean, I don't know. I think maybe overall, like, Valentina will definitely have probably the strength, as far as like if she gets her down to the ground, like she does very well at holding on to her opponents down there and whatnot. But I don't know how to feel about that one. It'll be interesting for sure.
Out of the three, what are you most excited for? Which bout?
Rose and Zhang.
Yeah,
same.
Yeah, I'm counting down the time. I feel like that fight has the opportunity to outbeat hers and Joanna's, which says a lot, because
for sure,
that was one of the craziest fights I've ever seen, ever.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
So
awesome.
to see how that can play out, and whatnot, I mean, it's exciting. Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Well, we won't hold you for too long. We really appreciate you doing this, Raquel. That's all we got for you today. Did you want to, before you go, did you want to thank anyone? Some sponsors, coaches, maybe some shout outs?
Yeah. First and foremost, I mean, it was great talking to you guys and catching up and whatnot. So thanks for having me on.
Same to you.
I just want to, of course, give the shout outs to all my coaches, everybody who stands beside me. Like, I'm truly grateful for them. It's more, we're like a family. They're my second family. And so for them to stick with me by this crazy journey, I mean, beyond grateful. And then, of course, my family, my close friends, and then all my true fans out there. I mean, I have some amazing fans who have followed me from day one. And the same way that I'm inspiring them, they inspire me every day to continue to push and continue to be better. So that, and then Lou, my nutritionist, who just jumped on board and who's basically changing my life right now. And I feel like it's going to make a total difference in my fight career. And then, it's pretty much what I got.
Awesome. Well, you definitely inspired us, and we really enjoyed this chat today. This is awesome. So, cool. Thanks again, Raquel. We really appreciate your time. Enjoy the fights tonight and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And good luck.
Yeah, you guys enjoy them too.
And good luck in the fight.
Have a good day, right?
Yeah, you bet.